On today's DNVR Broncos show, we're going to tell you about if the quarterbacks finished hot after a great start to practice, and Courtland Sutton got paid. But what does it actually look like, and what does it do for his future with the Broncos? And finally, we'll tell you the winners and losers of today's practice. Let's start now. You know what day 2 of training camp means, Henry? It means the Bo Show was in full effect over at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit. Look at that. I nailed it. Thank you. I feel good about that one. And of course, we are powered here at the DNVR Broncos Podcast by the Toyota Lounge and driven by those Front Range Toyota stores. There we go. Oh my goodness. After standing in the heat, especially like this 99 degrees, it takes it out of me. But I'm pumped to talk about today's practice. And let's just dive right in where, of course, we've got Henry Chisholm. We've got Kale behind the camera. And yours truly, Zach Stevens, rocking and rolling with you today. And Henry, yesterday was Jarrett Stidham's day with the ones. Today was officially Bo Nix's day with the ones, which means we have seen a change in the quarterback competition. Yes. During the offseason, it was Zac Wilson who was the second quarterback to get an opportunity with the first team. Now that's Bo. And I think that might be pretty significant. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's break down how these quarterbacks did today. And because it was the Bo Show, let's start with Bo Nix. And let's see how the Bo Watch unfolded today. What score did you give him? You gave Bo a 4 out of 10. I gave Bo a 3.5 out of 10. And just a reminder for people out there, this is not your elementary school's grading system. They weren't this bad.
The classic out of 10 grading system in elementary schools?
Yeah, you know, 9 is good, 8 is okay, C is, or B, if you get a 70, you're like barely passing.
Wow.
If you got a 3.5 in elementary school, you're not moving to that next grade. You're staying there. We're doing this as 5 is average. So, Henry, let's actually, before we move on to the other guys, let's just break down Bo's day and how it started and how it finished and why you gave him a 4, why you gave him a 3.5.
Well, I think the difference probably is just how we weight the 7-on-7s. That'd be my guess. I think that 7-on-7s, he was really good. Ball didn't hit the ground. Great ball to Lucas Kroll, maybe the best play of the day in 7-on-7s. I don't know. Maybe you extrapolate something about the players.
I'm kidding.
So great in 7-on-7s, and then overthrew Troy Franklin deep, who had a step on Pat Surtain. That was brutal. When that ball was in the air, I was like, oh my goodness, if this happens, the hype is going to be through the roof. Troy Franklin just beat Pat and Bo hit him. No, he overthrew him by a solid, 5-10 yards?
Yeah.
It wasn't like a little, almost.
Think about that, though. What was it, a 50-yard pass?
Yeah, probably.
Like, it was a deep pass. And this was in team period. This was the first pass in team period from Bo. And like you said, Troy Franklin had a step on Pat Surtain and Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones, number 22, was having that deep coverage as well. And Troy Franklin beat them both. And it's crazy that Bo Nix overthrew Troy Franklin by a ton. That arm strength is not a concern with Bo Nix. That's one of the things that I have become very comfortable just crossing off my list of things to be concerned about is Bo Nix's arm strength when it comes to short passes, and he needs to really zip it in there, and then deep passes as well. But you're right, Henry. Man, Bo Nix would be the story if he had hit that pass.
Yep. Missed Josh Reynolds a couple plays later. Just like a quick little out route. That one I hated. Then 2 team periods today. Little change up. Yesterday we got the 7-on-7s and the 1 team period. But today, 7-on-7s, 2 team periods. So second team period starts off with another overthrow, this time to Tim Patrick.
Yep.
Went over his head.
Middle of the field, kind of one of those deep posts as well.
Not super deep.
Yeah, no, I guess not super deep.
Yeah.
What, 10?
15, 10, 15 right in there.
Yeah.
But I saw PJ and Brandon Jones afterward. They seemed upset. Nobody had caught it. You said that they were not anywhere close anyway.
No, I mean, you said what? PJ and Brandon Jones?
Yeah.
They're both much shorter than Tim Patrick. And Tim Patrick, it was like 5 feet above his head.
Yeah.
It was like nowhere close.
Okay. See, and this is probably a good time to say, the way they have the fields aligned right now is so they're the two fields next to each other, and we're basically on the sidelines of one of the fields, like on the far side. Yesterday they were on the close field. Today they're on the far field. So we're a solid 50 yards with people in between watching these, which really sucked today. So that's why a couple of these things, it's tough to say exactly what happened. They were upset. I'm not really sure why they were upset, but they looked like they were sitting back a little bit deeper. So yeah, he had the overthrow there as well. Then he went to Josh Reynolds again. I had that as like a drop short middle, but there was like somebody was contesting it.
I think it was Levi Wallace.
Levi Wallace?
Levi
Okay.
Wallace had because it was 50 yards away, I couldn't tell if it was a drop, if the ball wasn't placed exactly where it needed to be, if it was a great pass breakup by Levi Wallace. Maybe a combination of all of those, but certainly heavy traffic.
Definitely. And then he also, again, this is another one we don't quite agree on, but he rolled out of the pocket and hit Tim Patrick on a comeback route. I had like 15 yards, maybe a little bit more than that even. You had that one as a sack though, right?
Yep.
So,
and now I will say that, you write down, if you think it's a sack, you write down it's a sack, but then you write down what happens after. Mm-hmm. And I did really like seeing Bo get out of the pocket, and then he kind of sidearm, again, a dart. It had a lot of zip to it, to Tim on the sideline for 10 yards or so. So to make something out of nothing, if he was able to get out of that sack, but like you said, Henry, I did think that was a sack, but what Bo was able to control, rolling out, using that sidearm zing, I really like to see that. But like you said, something's up with Bo these last 2 days. The accuracy just is not there. I'm not freaking out about it because Bo Nix has like 7 years of college tape showing me he's extremely accurate. And in the offseason program, he was extremely accurate. But that's why Bo Nix has been a little bit underwhelming these first 2 days of training camp, is the accuracy just has not been there. And I do not expect this to be something that continues to haunt him. It's just been kind of 2 bummer days in a row.
Yeah. And I mean, really, if you're counting 7-on-7s, which are, again, just like more of a passing drill than an actual like team, let's go play football type situation.
You could scramble in those, according to you.
No, I didn't say you could scramble. I said that I'm not just going to tank your entire day's grade, ignore some other good things you did because you scrambled. I think you've probably seen like 8 plays yesterday, 12 plays today. So you've seen about 2 drives, maybe, hopefully, from Bo Nix over the course of the 2 days. And so again, like you don't need to overreact to anything. You got to just wait and see what happens. What happens after 5 days, or 7 practices, 10 practices, and then you'll start to get like a real feel. But I will say, yesterday when he's missing some passes in 7-on-7s, just that short stuff, I don't worry about that because I know he can do it. And again, he showed it today. He was super sharp during the 7-on-7s. I will say, again, one of my biggest complaints in just like what he's done throughout his career is just the consistency hitting those deep balls, because you do see him tend to overthrow those, and he says, no, I hit those. And I was like, well, I've watched and I've seen that sometimes you overthrow those. So I would love to see him hit those ones. I don't know that's a huge surprise. He'll hit some, you miss some. I guess that's every quarterback, but that one does kind of align with what you think of Bo Nix, whereas yesterday it's easier to set aside because missing short passes you don't worry too much about.
Right, 100%. All right, let's move on to Jarrett Stidham today and get his grades. I'm very curious where Henry has Stidham checking in if he was better. Oh, significantly better than Bo. Henry's got Jarrett Stidham at a 5.5, above average.
Yeah.
That's the first truly above average grade that either of us have given a quarterback so far in camp, and I went with a 4 out of 10. So I did think he was better than Bo today, but only a little bit. Tell me why you think he was sizably better.
Again, the 7-on-7's also very sharp. And I think that this is another spot where maybe I'm just weighting those a little bit more.
But like you said about Bo, Bo did not have a pass hit the ground in 7-on-7. Stidham did not either.
Nope. And that's, again, you just really like to see that. Especially compared to yesterday where the 7-on-7s were really ugly. Maybe that's why I cared a little bit more today. But so when you look at the team drills, we disagreed on a couple of these. The first one being so much pressure. The backup offensive lines really have struggled these first couple of days. This first play, Pressure comes, he rolls out to the right, he circles back and goes to the left. Thomas Incomb's chasing him down. He hits Von Bailey on like a scramble drill type thing for a dozen yards, maybe even more. I didn't think Thomas Incombe got to him. You did.
I wrote down in my notes maybe sacked.
Okay.
But then it was a nice play. Again, just like Bo had the nice play moving out of the pocket if he didn't get sacked. It was a really good feel in the pocket for Jarrett Stidham to get the ball out and find Bailey.
Yep, and I really struggled with the rest of the grade. He hits a check down, and then the second team period, he did miss a throw, and it's after another like big rollout. There was a blitz coming. It might have been a sack there. He had like a little dump off. He had a scramble at the end. Mostly that pressure just made it so there really wasn't all that much to grade for him with the third string offense today with in those team periods. And so I had to just wait the 7-on-7s a little bit more because that's where most of the work actually came. And again, I thought from what he was able to do, he was a tick better. And I think I was a little bit encouraged just by he looked mobile. He looked like he was making guys miss. And while that doesn't always translate to results in practice situations, that's why I was able to give him the extra half point there. So it feels good.
Yeah, and I mean, the reason why I had him just slightly under average is he didn't hit a pass. If he got sacked on that one play, which I said could have been a sack, he didn't hit a pass that wasn't a check down.
I agree.
But why I'm not killing him for this day is Henry, he doesn't put the ball in harm's way. He has not done that this offseason. He did not do it yesterday. He did not do it today. Zac Wilson, or I should say, Bo Nix, overthrowing some balls where you said PJ and Brandon Jones were in the area. That can be a little scary. The overthrow to Troy Franklin, not a scary pass at all because the worst thing that happens is it hits the ground just like it did. Stidham has not put the ball in harm's way at all.
Yep.
But at some point, we need to see something other than just check downs from Stidham for it to be like, okay, what are we doing? Like if Stidham is 8 for 10 every single day, but no pass he's completing is going for more than 4 yards, then what are we doing? Then you put Bo out there. If Stidham can make 2 of those 8 passes, big plays, then it's like, okay, now I can see the vision and why Sean wouldn't just hand the job over to Bo. But to me, just an underwhelming day. Like you said, though, started off hot in 7-on-7, but then didn't have anything outside of a check down. Okay, and now let's hit Zac Wilson because Henry, I wonder if the tides are already turning in the wrong direction for Zac Wilson. Let's see where. I'm interested now. Whoa, you had Zac Wilson at a 5. You thought he was average today.
Yeah, no. Again, also didn't miss a throw in 7-on-7s. So you start right there.
So all 3 of the guys on the same page.
Yes, and I would say also that he hit Lil Jordan Humphrey for at least 15. I had it looking like 20. It's tough to schedule those or to count those lines. But so I did really like that. I think that you saw him push the ball downfield a little bit more compared to a Jarrett Stidham, for example. I'll also say that it felt like he was going through the reads slower. Again, I didn't have like a stopwatch out there, but when you just watch Bo go through, you watch Zac Wilson go through, you watch Stidham go through, and I bumped him down a tick because he looked like he was just a little bit slower going through those progressions. In the team periods, so he got sacked twice in the first team period, which again, similar to Jarrett Stidham, he hit a quick little curl to Jalen Virgil too, but there just isn't all that much to grade when you got guys bearing down on you like that.
And that was just a short completion.
Yep, just on the boundary, 5 yards, whatever it was.
He was also behind Courtland Sutton in the middle of the field.
Behind Courtland Sutton in the middle of the field.
The very final throw of that first team period.
Oh, yeah. And I just had that one as a sack.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the second team period, J.L. Skinner made a great play on a pass breakup. And it was on the far sideline of the far field. So I didn't get all the details, but you saw him fly in, and I love that. So that to me, I wrote in my notes is great PBU, almost an interception. Like, it would have taken a great play for him to make that an interception. But he's so long that he could actually...
He is. Yeah. But that was, to me, that was a pretty big negative because that was the only turnover-worthy play, if you want to chart it like that, on today, was that pass from Zac Wilson where it could have been picked off.
And I'd imagine that's the difference because I didn't think that I thought it took so much effort for him to go get a ball on an out route to break outside and get a hand on it. I didn't think so, but again, like you're watching from across the field, so it's easy, especially today, for us to see things differently. And then again, after that, you've got like a little screen pass, a couple hits Lucas Kroll, hits Thomas Yasmin, not much there. But I think you go through and the ball just really didn't hit the ground all that much. You throw in the one to who was that? Was that Lil Jordan on the crosser in 7-on-7s? I think it bounces out to a 5.
So why I think that's crazy to say he had an average day is in the team periods, he had 3 completions. All were short or check downs, 5 yards behind or 5 yards past the line of scrimmage at most, and then he almost had an interception.
And I didn't have that as that.
And he also had a couple of other plays, or that one to Sutton that I said was a drop. So to me, I just think that was he had the worst day of them all. But we got to get to something more on Zac Wilson, because I wonder if Sean Payton hinted that he might be out of the race already. Let's get to that after I give a shout out to our friends over at Toyota. You guys know we love Toyota. Henry, my car is having some problems. Like, I was crossing my fingers hoping it was going to start. I've had this car for like 10 years, so you're going to have problems. But I might be thinking about a new car, and I'll be checking them out. My local Front Range Toyota stores. It didn't the first time.
Oh, God.
I waited like four seconds, and it started again. So thankfully, I was able to make it here. You wouldn't have those issues if you had a Toyota.
No.
Over at your Front Range Toyota stores. I'd have to go with the 4Runner. That's my favorite. But they've got so many different cars, including, I also love the Land Cruiser. That's kind of like a classic one of theirs, and they just brought it back. They launched a new model this last spring, the 2024 Land Cruiser. They've also got the 2024 Tacoma. And the awesome thing is they have 17 different models with all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like the 4Runner. And they also have 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. So if you need a new car, wanted to upgrade your car, go and check out our friends over at Toyota. And you can check them out at so many different locations at your Front Range Toyota stores near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota and Boulder, Groove Toyota and Littleton, Mountain States Toyota and Denver, Stevenson Toyota East and Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West and Lakewood. Toyota, the official partner of the NFL and the official vehicle of DNVR.
And hopefully you didn't listen to me yesterday when we were talking about Bet365.
Oh, my goodness. I thought it was a good bet when you put it out there. Oh, yeah. And,
no, I maybe have never been more wrong than I was when I said the Rockies were up 3-1 in the second inning against the Red Sox. And I was like, hey, plus 220 on the Red Sox. I might go put some money on the Red Sox to come back and beat the Rockies, just given who those two clubs are.
Very fair.
And then what happened was the Rockies wound up scoring 20 runs, and boy, was that not what I expected. It was kind of fun, though.
Tied the record for the club.
Oh, yeah. And it was a lot of fun because, like, they were having position players pitch. And so, like, I'm just working, and on, like, half my computer, I have just, like, the game on, and I see, like, it's like the start of the 7th inning, I think, or I guess it'd be the bottom of the 7th, and this pitch is, like, lobbed up and, like, drops down. I was like, what the... that's not like a fork ball? Is that like I don't understand what just happened. I was like, wait, that's not an actual pitcher. So he was just like dropping these balls in and wound up getting 3 outs, which is, again, somehow leaves a bad taste in your mouth when you're up 20-0 still as a Rockies fan. But yeah, Bet365 is awesome. I haven't looked yet at their Olympic bets. We'll take a peek at those tomorrow. Oh, they're here. Every event, baby. All the badminton, all the basketball. I'm willing to say there are at least 200 different. So 50-meter freestyle. Cameron McAvoy, whoever that is, minus 118. I'm really excited for this. Again, because we're just going to be writing. I'm going to sit and watch the Olympics and bet. Bet365, if you use the code DNVR365, you can get an awesome promotion. You get... if you deposit $5 or more, you get to make $10 or more, bet and get offer, place about $5 or more and get $150 in bonus bets. Or you can take the first bet safety net offer. You place a bet up to $1,000 with your very first bet. And if that bet loses, you get a matched refund in bonus bets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or somebody you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
And speaking of never ordinary, we're shaking this show up a little bit by bringing in our guy, Brian Baldinger. Baldy, what is going on? Here we go. We're bringing him on right now. Baldy,
okay.
There we go.
No, it's I'm back from vacation. I'm at NFL Films on the 3rd floor. I'm ready to start this training camp tour tomorrow, so I'm ready to get back in the swing of things like everybody else.
Yeah, man, Broncos are getting underway, had their first acclimation practice yesterday. Are you going to make it out to Denver at all on this tour?
It looks, I mean, I'm booked, I know, straight through August 6th, but I don't know before then I'm booked. But after that, there could be some openings for me for sure.
Okay, let's go. I'd love it. And Baldy, you'd get to see one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid offensive lines now in Denver. This is the first time I think that we've got to talk to you since Quinn got his new deal. What did you think of the Broncos making him the third highest paid guard in the NFL?
Guards are getting paid now. You know, they've got to stop these monsters inside around the league right now. When you're going up against Kansas City twice a year, somebody's got to go toe-to-toe with Chris Jones. Like he basically has and so you need guys that can be able to handle that, can stay there and take on these monsters inside so the quarterback, has got a flat pocket to step up into. And so I think the last time we talked, honestly, Zach, you threw that question out to me. I didn't think they had a choice but to sign Quinn and to get him locked up, and start building this thing. Sean Payton has a history of paying guards. Jari Evans, a good friend of mine, he was the highest paid guard in the league when he was in New Orleans for a while. They had a kid named Nix playing left guard. He was the highest paid guard in the league for a while until he got hurt. I think Sean Payton recognizes the importance of those players at that position.
You also have told us that you think the offensive line can only be as good as its center. We've seen the beginning of this center competition, and while the quarterbacks are rotating every single day, we can't give too many details about what we've seen from the centers, but in the past, they've rotated them 2 days at a time. So instead of rotating them on the same schedule as the quarterbacks, they kind of alternate a little bit. Do you think that that's the right move so that you either get more consistency with the offensive line or you work with different quarterbacks? What do you think?
Well, it's a little confusing, not what you just described, but it's a little confusing because you honestly, the way you always know who the starting center is, he's always with the starting quarterback, but you know who the starting quarterback is yet. And so it's a little bit confusing. I mean, you just go out in pregame warmup, the starting quarterback is always with the starting center, even though there might be 3 centers taking snaps, or if you go to training camp. But since there's competition both at center and at quarterback, it's a little difficult to really judge who's ahead at this point. But ultimately, they've got to get these positions figured out. And it's hard because you only get 3 games. You might get a couple scrimmages. How many snaps is this, are you going to be able to make this decision on? It's a little tough. Most teams have their center position nailed down right now. Denver's one of those teams that's a little bit in flux.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big thing for this group. And yesterday, Sean said that the offensive line is the most important position group on the entire team. I have to imagine being an offensive lineman yourself, you agree with that. And if you do, Baldy, why is that the case? Not just like on offense, but the entire team.
Well, your offense is only going to be as good as your offensive line. I mean, New Orleans offense got better the day they drafted Ryan Ramczyk and plugged him in at right tackle. They got better that day. And they played like it, It's just because of the interaction, both in the run game and the pass game, how you're only going to be as good as that group up front. You don't care who's playing quarterback or who's that receiver or running back. They are dependent upon those 5 or 6 guys, including the tight ends, to be able to keep the line of scrimmage clear. And the best teams have the best offense line. It's just the way it's always been. And here's the deal. There's a point in the Super Bowl last year in overtime where the right guard in San Francisco goes the wrong way. If he doesn't go the wrong way, Brock Purdy probably hits Brian and Ayuk on the opening drive of overtime, and they score a touchdown. And maybe they win that Super Bowl. I mean, I'm not picking on the right guard, but the right guard made a mistake. So, and Chris Jones came free and just about decapitated Brock Purdy. If you make a mistake up front on your offense line or you don't execute a block in a pass game or run game, the play doesn't work. And so that's just the reality of how important that position is.
The Broncos aren't going to put on pads until Monday's practice. So these 2 practices we've seen from the offensive line, I'm curious how much weight you would put in them. Because one of the things Sean Payton said yesterday is that at some point in the play, either the offensive lineman or defensive lineman, he used the word acquiesces just kind of gives up and says like, okay, you won this one. You kind of have to let him go. Does that mean there's a real competition there? There is something you can read into it, or you just have to wait to make any evaluations till Monday?
I would never wait till Monday to make evaluations. I mean, I evaluate guys in walkthroughs. Like, I think, if you're just say Andrew Whitworth back with the Rams when he was a left tackle, he tried to win every single walkthrough, and on the other side, Aaron Donald tried to win every single walkthrough. Like, I'm evaluating these guys. There's a lot of things you can do mentally, a lot of things you can do from a fundamental standpoint. You can keep your pad level down. You can show up out there with your shoes tied, ankles taped, like it's game day. The mentality is there. If you're in shells, certainly, you're not going to drill a guy in the ground and finish him. You got to practice right. But your first two steps are critical in any run block, and how you're going to mesh with either the guy next to you or the guy on the other side, whether it's combo block, cutoff blocks. You've got to take the right angles. For a long time in Denver, their offensive line coach was Alex Gibbs, and nobody chewed out more players in practice in the history of this game, including Vince Lombardi, than Alex Gibbs. Like, your steps and your angles and your pad level are critical in every play, no matter what the dress is for your practice. So to wait till Monday to make these evaluations, to me, you're missing valuable time.
Yeah, Baldy, great point there, and I love that you brought up Alex Gibbs, of course, a real folk hero here in Denver. And on the defensive side of the ball, how important is it for the Broncos to find a good, solid number 2 cornerback to really solidify their secondary? Because you have Pat Surtain on one side, but a lot of people think that, no matter how good Pat is, you can always look to the other side if that second cornerback spot is weak. Is that a massive hole for the Broncos to fill, or do you think that Pat, even with how great he is, that he can still be good even without the number 2 cornerback being filled?
Well, I don't think Pat's greatness in his consistency of play has anything to do with the other corner. He's locked in on his side of the field. But, look, I thought Jaquan did an unbelievable job jumping in the slot last year and nailing that position down. I feel like it's a position of strength, and everybody's looking for that guy. But the corner opposite, Pat Surtain, look, if you're playing Justin Herbert, I don't know who the receivers are going to be right now with the Chargers, but certainly if you're playing Patrick Mahomes, and if he feels like he's got a weakness to one side, Andy Reid's going to wear that guy out, and they're going to call plays against him. So you're only going to be, it's a cliche, but you're only going to be as strong as your weakest link. Right. And so it's important. And Patrick wants, he wants to get some action out there. He doesn't want to go through games where they're not coming after him and targeting him and, giving him a chance to make a play or shut down a play. So if you can have a position of strength on the other side of him, it's going to make Patrick happier because he's going to get more work. But if you don't have a strong corner on the other side, he's going to get a lot of attention.
You brought up Jaquan. The competition seems like it should be Levi Wallace, Riley Moss, Damari Mathis. Would you consider letting Jaquan compete for that other outside job? Because he's a smaller guy. He's only 5'8", maybe listed 5'8", not the fastest. But would you give him a chance out there? Because he did look really good, and it seems like you'd want him on the field as much as possible.
I'd be a little hesitant. I feel like he's got that position. He's got the skills for the position. He's got a knack for the ball. If you want to try to cross-train him outside, I think it weakens his inside game a little bit. I don't think he's made to play outside. I'm not saying he can't. There's certainly corners that can, but he reminds me of Kenny Moore in Indianapolis, who's been a Pro Bowl slot corner. And I tell people all the time, he's like Jaquan. He's not a very big guy. I think Kenny Moore was a free agent out of Valdosta State. I don't think he was drafted like Jaquan. But regardless, when teams are in a 2 receiver set, Kenny Moore goes out and plays outside, and he runs with these guys and makes plays on the ball like you have to. Most teams are in 3 wide receiver sets, so I think that's the position for Jaquan right now.
Baldy, we've made it 10 minutes into talking to you, and we haven't talked about the quarterback, so I got to bring it up right now. What we've seen in the first 2 practices of training camp, and then also in the practices during the offseason, we've seen Jarrett Stidham be the best quarterback on this Broncos team, but kind of Bo Nix is right behind him. But Jarrett Stidham's still the better quarterback, but Bo Nix is right there. If that's how it goes through training camp, where Jarrett Stidham's the better quarterback, but Bo Nix is right on his tail, what do you think Sean, in like a veteran offensive coach, would end up doing? Would he go with the guy that is the better quarterback in this moment, or because Bo has so much potential being that first round pick, and he has been almost as good as Stidham, would he go to that direction?
Well, it's a great question, and it's worded correctly. You want to play your best players. You can't lie to the rest of your team. But if there isn't much difference, or if the difference is small, maybe you make the commitment to the younger player and put him out there. But you don't want to put anybody out there before they're ready, and you don't want to put anybody out there until they earn it. So I'm interested to see how Sean's going to split these reps in these games, because ultimately, if you really want to evaluate a guy, whether it's Bo or Jarrett or Zac, you want them to get as many reps with the first-team offense as you can. You want them throwing to Courtland and handing off to Javonte. And you want, Quinn at right guard to really make proper evaluations. Honestly, especially with just 3 preseason games, there really isn't enough reps to go around right now to really have a true quarterback competition. So practice is going to be really, really important. And the consistency that Sean's looking for has got to show up in practice. The games might decide it for us on the outside, but I think these practices every day are all going to be really, really important.
I'm curious what you think of the 7-on-7 drills, because that's when we go through and we try to figure out how these guys did each day. The ball didn't touch the ground for the Broncos during 7-on-7s today, but during the team drills, the ball was on the ground a lot. So when you look at that, do you just balance it out and say like, yeah, pretty average overall, or do the team drills matter more? What do you think of 7-on-7s?
Well, I always think that, 7-on-7s, favor the offense just because there's no pass rush, there's no pressure. You get a clean look for the most part. You can put the ball where you want to put it most of the time without any obstruction. I mean, most throws in the NFL are obstructed throws. Most throws, a quarterback sees just a little bit of the receiver, if at all, and he's thrown it to a spot. So it kind of favors the offense. So it's not unusual to see that, where the ball hits the ground, or there's a lot more incompletions in a team drill than in a 7-on-7. But the 7-on-7, I mean, it gets you to read defenses. If you're throwing go routes, the ball placement, is it inbounds, giving the receiver a chance? If it's red zone, is the ball placed properly so that the receiver has a chance to win the contested catch? Like, all these things have value. If it's a running back coming out of the backfield, can he shake the linebacker? If it's your tight end against a slot corner, who can win those drills? If it's a man, if it's in zone, all those things have a value and are all part of every team's practice reps.
Baldy, speaking of value, you bring so much value to this show. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to catch up as much as we can with you throughout training camp. But we know you're busy, and we look forward to it.
You got it, guys. Thanks for having me, and I'll talk to you real soon.
Right on, let's do it.
I'm to see what happens in Denver during this whole thing.
Oh, me too. Thanks, Baldy. Have a great one, and safe travels. Oh, man, love it. He brought up something with the second to last question that he had, talking about the quarterbacks and talking about, there's not enough reps to go around right now. You got to start narrowing this thing down. And Henry, I want to play a clip from Sean Payton today to see if you picked up on maybe something that I picked up on too. But first, I got to give a shout out to our friends over at Game Time, where it's game time here. It's game time in the Olympics. It's game time with the Rockies as they put on a beating on the Red Sox, and it's almost game time for Broncos preseason games. And if you want to go to a preseason game or that first home game against Russell Wilson, or will it be Justin Fields, you should go to the Game Time app and use the code DNVR to get you $20 off. Man, I cannot wait. I'm so hoping that it's Russell Wilson week 1, but Russ had a little calf issue today, so Justin Fields got the first team reps with the Steelers. I wonder if he's going to take off and run with that job or not. But use that code DNVR over at Game Time, whether it's Nuggets games, whether it's Avs games, whether it's Rockies games, whether it's Broncos games. Broncos games is going to get you $20 off. Rockies games, it might get you in for free if you use that code DNVR and get the right tickets over there at Coors Field. We love Game Time. Use it for concerts as well. And of course, so many games in Colorado. And Game Time has a Game Time guarantee, so you know you're paying the lowest prices. So use that code DNVR over at Game Time, where they have last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Also, shout out to Volo Sports. We see those guys around a bunch. They were doing some drinking games at the bar on Sunday.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was getting wild. Also, 2 of them won circuit trips, which is pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and they were actually like sitting at the same tables. So they've got like a squad going.
Wow.
So they were hyped. Yes, one of them actually made it to the semifinal of the tournament as well.
And did you beat him?
No.
It sounds like you were playing some drinking games too.
No, I was thinking, no. He lost in the semifinal. I won in my semifinal 48-0. Or it was 48-0 when the guy quit.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was fun.
You're not a good host.
Also, somebody saying just because Hank misses a lot doesn't mean he's a bad guy. Check the notes from last year. There aren't misses in there.
I think people are tearing you down in the comments. I know. You can't pay attention
the notes
to
were
Toyota
right. The
chat
notes.
right
Go
now.
check the notes from last year. See what they say. But Volo's awesome. They do a whole bunch of cool things all around the city. Only $20 a month if you want to join the sport and social club. You get to meet a whole bunch of people, unlimited access to pickups and league drop-ins as a sub, includes league discounts up to $50, free or discounted access to tournaments, fitness classes, and events. All you got to do is sign up on the Volo app, use the code DNVR3, get the Volo Pass for only $10 a month for the first 3 months.
All right, so Henry, let's dive in and hear from Sean Payton. He was asked a very open-ended question about, like, how does all the experience, I think the question was worded from our friend Andrew Mason, was worded, have you noticed Zac Wilson's starting experience show up on the field? Because Jarrett Stidham has 4 total starts. Bo Nix has 0 total starts. Yet Zac Wilson has over 30 starts in the NFL. And here's what we heard.
I think we'll be able to see that a little bit clearer in the games. But look, he's learning a new offense, just like Bo is. But there's a calming presence to seeing him. You know, in other words, I think. That experience, I think you begin to appreciate what's most important maybe sometimes and not worry about some of the things that aren't as important. That takes place. And so less wasted energy maybe. Those would be a few things.
Okay. That's how long Sean Payton's pause was. It was 6 seconds. That is so long. And, I don't want to read too much into a pause, but when it was happening, I was reading into it. I'm like, oh my God, I can't find a good thing to say about Zac. And then, like, the answer kind of unfolded, and, a calming presence to him. I was pretty awakened by that answer from Sean, because we've seen it, Henry, and we've said it, that overall, Jarrett Stidham's been the number 1 quarterback, then Bo Nix has been pretty close to him, and then Zac Wilson has clearly been the 3rd quarterback in this quarterback competition going back to the offseason. And again, practices are only going to get more valuable and more important the further we go along in training camp, in preseason games. But that was, to me, that was like, whoa. But then there was another moment in the press conference where there was a little back and forth between a reporter, and this reporter said, okay, so Jarrett Stidham started yesterday. Bo Nix started today. Does that mean Zac Wilson is starting tomorrow? And Sean got a little snippy and was like, you'll see tomorrow. Yeah. And he said, well, we're not going to talk to you until after practice. Boy. And he said, well, yeah, you'll see it practice. Which he left the door open for Zac Wilson to not be the starter tomorrow. And to me, Henry, if Zac Wilson's not the starter tomorrow, it's officially over. Oh, definitely. For Zac Wilson.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I also think the snippiness was that he had already said, like, yeah, we're going through like rotation. Like he'd already been asked kind of the question, and then somebody followed up and was like, "But is Zac Wilson going to be out there?" And I was like, "I'm not feeding into this. Like,
totally
I'm not now going to say yes, Zac is going to be the guy." Right. So yeah, I think it was more so just like.
Do you think it was a middle finger to the media, not necessarily that Zac Wilson is going to be out of this race by tomorrow?
I would say yes. Once again, middle finger to the media. Maybe pissed on a tree. It wasn't like the strong piss that.
Oh gosh.
It wasn't. A couple days ago there were some like.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's a lot of piss. There was just like a light little.
Is it tinkle?
Yeah, it was a tinkle on the trees.
So, I mean, that's what we're going to have our eyes on tomorrow. And here's the difference about tomorrow. Fans are going to be at Broncos practice tomorrow, which means you and I get to live tweet the practices. We don't have to wait until practice is over. So make sure to stay tuned to that. We're not really allowed to say like Zac Wilson is starting, although some other reporters are going to say that. So that'll open it up for us to say it as well.
Yeah.
But just be paying attention to our Twitter feeds on who's throwing the first pass. We'll make it clear because Zac Wilson, if he's not out there with the starters, I think he's done. So pay attention to that. That's going to be the story of tomorrow. And why this wraps in with what we talked about with Baldy is Baldy made it clear there's not enough reps to go around right now, especially for a three-man competition. And Henry, to me, right if you know, and right when Sean Payton knows that either A, he has a starter, or B, that one of these guys is dropping out, he's got to make that move right away to give that starter all the reps, or to give those other two guys as many reps as possible, to give them 50% of the reps instead of 33% of the reps. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that move. Maybe I'd be a little surprised if we see it happen tomorrow, but wouldn't be surprised if we see that move happen in the next week or so.
Definitely. Yeah, I would imagine they'll at least give Zac one day. But like I've said, I mean, this is back-to-back days. I've graded him out higher than I've graded out Bo.
You are crazy.
I don't think I am
you
crazy.
You are crazy.
I mean, what we decide? He had one pass hit the ground today?
Zac?
Is that correct?
That is not correct.
I think it's just the batted ball from Skinner. Oh, because you kept going after the sacks. So you said like there was an incompletion after a sack.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So exactly. To me, when you go through it's one incomplete pass. So like I don't think that he
and the only turnover worthy play.
Again, I didn't have it turnover worthy. So again, it's just differences in how we see it. But that's to me like I don't think he's done anything different. I also don't think like you look at him and say like, oh, this has been awesome. I think that you remember what he did in the spring, and that doesn't help. I don't think we're ready to be kicking Zac Wilson out, but I do think he has the shortest leash of any of the three. I think even going back to the question about like, does Zac's starting experience show up? Of course not. Like, remember what he did when he was a starter? Like, you don't want that experience to show up. Like if what he did with the Jets is showing up here, all of a sudden, why did you even bring him here? That's what you're trying to get out of him. You're trying to get rid of all that experience. So I don't even look at that as like oh no, his starting experience isn't showing up. It's, well, I mean, thank goodness he's not doing that stuff.
Just remember the 6-second pause next time you want to say that Zac Wilson was better than Bo Nix.
But again, the 6-second pause to the question, is his starting experience showing up? Like, I think what Sean wanted to say was no, and thankfully it is no, because I guess he did. He had that one bad throw today where he spiked the ball during they have like the old warm up. So it's like a running back on a swing route. That's the Zac Wilson classic. Just not quite getting the ball to the running back on the swing route. But
yep. And I decided, I have that on camera and I decided not to put that out there.
Yeah. We had that conversation and I was like, I don't know, man, you could if you want. But I almost circled back and was like, just don't do it from DNVR Broncos. Like, if you want to do that yourself, you go ahead. But like, I saw, could you see, I think it was RG's post. We've gotten a bunch of people responding with different GIFs that all say delete this.
Oh geez, which post is it?
It's
if it's a high quality camera, it's certainly RG.
It's
the RAR.
It's Bo Nix going like this, and RG tweeted, Bo said RAR. But also 150 likes, so I almost dropped a poll underneath to be like, is this...
Should we delete it or not?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's touch on some other things before we get into Courtland Sutton's contract and what it actually looks like, what it actually means for his future. Who else stood out to you today? Henry, who do we need to give some love to?
Oh, see, I gotta go with the first name that comes to mind, Darrell Chami. I mean, the guy, like, and I hate doing it because
you are sick.
Because like you say that, and I'm like, it's Darrell Chami, and I was like, no, you can't say that one
and
first.
And then you said it though.
And I was like, if that's first that comes to mind, he had a great day yesterday, sack yesterday. He had another sack today. He played so well yesterday that when I was done working, I was just sitting on the couch as I do, and I
Where are we going here?
I was watching. No, okay. I looked up like the scouting reports from him as a draft prospect. I can't remember if it was Lance Zierlein or Daniel Jeremiah writing about him. So he was from Maryland. Didn't get drafted last year. Didn't get to go anywhere until the end of the season. I think the Broncos signed him late in the season, the practice squad. And the scouting reports like prototypical athlete, like athleticism, size, all that sort of stuff. Just had injuries in college and barely got to play at all. Needs a year on the practice squad, but then he might be able to contribute. And so like you see that and then you read that and you're like, well, now here we are. And so I went back and watched some clips. So I was excited. And then he did it again today, beating my guy Alex Palshevsky, who had a false start yesterday. So he's in tough shape. Made the 53 last year and went straight to IR.
Year, and you were right.
It's a slow start for sure, though. And I thought this tackle competition, he could kind of climb up, but tough start. Another one, though, a better one. Audric Estime.
Yes.
I said yesterday there was one moment where I saw him, and like I wouldn't say I had nightmares about this, but all night, like guys kept thinking about like, why did he look so slow? And I thought through everything because the play was like, it's like a zone run. You have this kick out from the tackle. And it just took forever for him to go from getting the ball to getting between the guard and tackle out on the edge. And I was like, well, had the tackle pushed the defender so far back that there was just an actual extra step of distance that needed to be carried? And so I was in a tough space. You remember yesterday with Audric. Today, though, he looked fast. And he actually, there was one play in particular at the end of it where he like kicked it into second gear as he was running downfield toward the end zone. Not because it was a touchdown, but because that's just what the running backs do when they get the ball. And I was like, okay. And I also remembered like, well, it was always the burst and not the long speed that you worry about with Audric. But that wasn't the point. The point was he looked fast, and Sean said a bunch about him too.
Yeah, I mean, Sean really likes Samaje Perine as a safety blanket.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of coming together. Javonte is the 1, Jaleel as the 2, and then Estime as the 3. And what was really funny is yesterday Sean talked about how all of these running backs have the versatility, and ideally he wants them to all be 3-down running backs where they can do it all, and he can put them on the field and not tip off with the defenses. And then today he was asked, what do you think about him as a receiver? Did you have any like did you have a vision for that as a receiver? And Sean just talked so highly of Audric. In fact, we have that audio right here. Let's play it to hear what Sean had to say about Audric.
The vision was pretty clear. You know, this is a guy, when we did all the studies on him, you know, we took 15-yard runs or more, first in his class, minus runs. You know, sometimes running backs have runs where they don't, first in his class. Real good vision in the hole. Rarely did you see a player lose yards. He had good feet for someone who was 220 pounds. So I saw runner first and value on when we took him. He was one of those guys that I really like. When the draft started, every once in a while there's a player you'd say, when this thing's all over with, I'd love to have this player. And fortunately, we were able to get this player.
Looks like time for a few more. Vision sort of as a receiver, did you see
potential? We saw potential in it, but we couldn't say that was the reason why we're drafting him. You know, a little bit with Kamara. You know, we had a receiver vision until he ran the ball for 52 yards against Arizona. Then very quickly we had a runner vision too. And so I think with Audric, we'll see how that expands. But he's smart, he's tough, and I like his size.
So, I mean, Sean praised him over and over and over again. Clearly, he's one of Sean's guys. But I did get the feeling that, like, yeah, he's not a receiver. Now, maybe he brought up the Kamara comp, and like they thought Kamara wasn't going to be a runner, and then he went out and proved that he was. So he's leaving the door open for Audric there. But yeah, no, he's not a receiver right now. But he is a bulldozer, and especially with Javonte dropping a little bit of weight. And we talked to Javonte today. He's now at 221 pounds, lost 11 pounds, feels a lot. What's the word he used? Shiftier. And he looks like that too. He looks more explosive. Now, obviously, Javonte is still a guy that is going to bulldoze over people. But then what's even more powerful than like a bulldozer?
2 bulldozers. No, like we can do better. We can do better.
Ball? No,
yeah, no, it will be stronger.
Okay, no, so a wrecking ball. If you need a wrecking ball to come in over the bulldozer, that's when you bring in Audric.
Yeah, and again, like, thank goodness he looked fast today. Because like I said, I was in a dark space yesterday because there was just that one play where it's like that didn't. Something was up there, but then today he's just going. And I think he is a 3-down running back. Like I get that he hasn't put a whole bunch of receiving ability on tape. But again, like when they did throw him the ball, he averaged 15 yards per catch in his junior year, only 8.4 last year, but more volume. Like I think he can do stuff there. You look at Samaje Perine and you're like, well, if Samaje is a receiving threat, then surely Audric is capable. The big thing is just the pass protection. And when you look at how this group could shake out, I think there's a world in which, assuming you don't want to play Michael Burton, it's Audric and Samaje who are kind of your two big pass protectors. Because even Javonte has some hiccups. You know, he's a strong guy, but that piece of his game is still kind of growing. Jaleel will probably never be a good enough pass protector to be in, like, every third down, we got to have him on the field just because you got to have somebody who can block a little bit. You know, Blake Watson, also a little bit smaller guy, but he's who you bring in. You bring in Audric to be your runner, you bring in Blake Watson to be your receiver. And who knows how it all shakes out with roster spots and all that. But again, Blake Watson was the perfect pairing for Estime in this class for that reason, because he was one of two backs who caught 50 balls last year in college.
And speaking of Blake Watson, Sean expects him to be back fairly soon. He's going to need to get back soon because this running back room, as Sean said, looks really good right now, and he is behind the 8 ball, not just because he's missed a couple of days of training camp, but also because he's a rookie that was undrafted.
Yep.
So he needs to make up a lot of ground. Speaking of young guys, Henry, this secondary is a group that really stood out to Sean today, and they don't have Caden Stearns, and it is not looking very good for Caden Stearns. Sean was asked about Caden Stearns and like when he's going to be back off the PUP, and he said it's a long road ahead for something just like that. So that's not encouraging, especially when then Sean goes out and praises the young guys, and JL Skinner being one of them. That pass breakup he had, the Broncos' young secondary looking good. They stood out today. They were given issues and problems to the quarterbacks today, so credit to them. The defensive line continues to look really good. And then a couple of other positions that Sean pointed to today that looked good, the tight ends and the running backs. We've talked about the running backs. The tight ends, Greg Dulcich making a couple plays, but Lucas Kroll making a couple of plays. Number 85 getting out there. And then Adam Troutman actually had a catch as well today.
Yeah. No, you like to see it. 2 catches, I think, for Kroll. One was that longer one from Bo Nix in 7-on-7s, which you like to see. Jumping back to Stearns real quick. So on Wednesday. So Tuesday, which you all remember is the day that Sean was pissing on all the trees. He was asked about Caden Stearns and was like, is he close to being back? And Sean just said, we'll see. And so I took today as kind of like okay, I should probably... I did maybe a little too much pissing. I should probably say something. So Caden tore his patellar tendon in September. Typically injuries don't take more than a year. Patellar tendon, you don't have as many of those. It's not like an ACL where you're just like, okay, it's 9 months, it's 10 months, 11, somewhere in there, you know? So I take long road ahead. First of all, off in meaning, no, he's not just like back immediately. Like there was a real chance he would be just given these 10 months removed. But even on top of that, it's like, okay, so is it September? I think it could be September. I think that could, in this circumstance, qualify for a long road ahead. October. So I don't think he's done for the year, but I do think that's kind of what you're looking at. Yeah, Kroll had a good day. Troutman did Troutman things. If he's your number 2 tight end, you are very, very happy. You just need Greg Dulcich to be a number 1.
Yep, you do. You do need Greg Dulcich, and it was great to see Greg out there practicing. Again, a couple of injury things before we touch on Courtland Sutton's situation. But Nick Bonito went to the side field for the second half of practice, so we'll keep our eyes out there. Nick Garguglio did not practice after he left practice yesterday, but again, Greg Dulcich was there. Courtland Sutton was there, and a couple minutes right before practice started, news came down that Courtland Sutton restructured his contract, and it's like, what's it gonna be? He got $1.5 million in incentives,
which is typically how these go. Like when you look across the league, I mean, it was just yesterday that Amari Cooper did almost the same thing. They wound up converting his salary to a signing bonus for salary cap reasons, which I guess he now gets the $17 million he would be paid over the next 5 months today, which is preferable, but isn't that big of a change.
It's guaranteed.
Yeah.
Then, obviously.
Imagine if I don't know why the Browns would be cutting Amari Cooper anyway, but it is what it is.
Well, that's the big thing with Courtland, though, is he only has $2 million of his entire contract this year and next year guaranteed.
Yep, but then the other piece is that Amari Cooper got $5 million in incentives. So that $1.5 million for Court, that part's a little bit low, but it does seem like, I wish I could think of more examples off the top of my head, but it seems like about half the time you get these receiver issues, it's like, okay, well, throw in some incentives and just turn the page.
And so the incentives are team-based, so team improvement from last year, winning record, make the playoffs sort of thing. That might be a high bar. Vegas would say that's a ridiculously high bar. And then also receiving stats for him to hit this year as well. So we'll see if he hits those. The Broncos would love for him to hit those. That means that he would have a monster season, and the Broncos would be a winning team, a playoff team potentially as well. But what was reported, I think Mike Kliss put this out there, that the Broncos had been offering Courtland that $1 million in an incentive bump all off season, and they finally agreed to the $1.5 million this year. From my understanding, Court was looking for a lot more, and not just in incentives. He was looking for a totally different deal. But this is what the Broncos offered, and he accepted on the second day of training camp. But Henry, this doesn't change a damn thing moving forward. Obviously, Court, now I have to imagine he's going to be happy enough. And he's obviously at training camp, no holdouts, no hold-ins, but I don't think this changes anything for next year. I think we're looking at this 2.0 next year because Courtland Sutton still $0 of guaranteed money for his 2025 contract. Yeah,
and I think it'll be easier to settle next year just because you have one more year of tape. Because you go into next year with no guarantees, and what does he do? 13 million, 14 million? Something right around there. And if he goes out there and has 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns, well, then you're saying, hey, we've got him for a steal. If he wants his guaranteed, sure, we can make it guaranteed. We're going to keep him anyway.
Court would be so pissed. If he gets 1,200 yards and they're no, we're not giving you anything else.
I mean, that's how these go, though. You're under contract. He could argue for an extension, and maybe there's a way to do it. But the other option is things don't go well, and then they move on from him, and they were able to hold on to that flexibility, which for the team is great. For Courtland, a little disappointing. Other thing contract-wise, we haven't talked about this on the show, but Quinn Minard's deal was misreported. He's not the 3rd highest paid guard. He's the 6th highest paid guard. It's not $20 million per year. It's up to $20 million a year. It's $18 million a year. And Nick Corti, not really sure how to say it, but he wrote this out very clearly. You can look at him on Twitter. But essentially, all the bonuses are just tied to being first-team All-Pro. So if that happens, then the Broncos will be on the hook for more.
And the Broncos would love that.
Oh, yes, definitely. But $18 million a year, although it's only $2 million different than $20 million a year, feels like so much less.
He's still the highest-paid offensive lineman. Still the highest-paid
Bronco. Well, other than Russell Wilson.
There is that.
There is still that.
It might be the Steelers' backup quarterback. Henry, you know what tomorrow is?
Friday.
First day of fans. On the field, which means,
right.
Again, our reporting changes a little bit. We can say more during practice, but it doesn't change what we're doing on this show. We're going to be back tomorrow shortly after practice. I think tomorrow's practice ends at noon, so we'll be starting around 1:15, 1:30, and then Saturday, the exact same thing. So thank you so much for tuning in with us. We'll see you tomorrow after the Broncos' 3rd day of training camp practice.
We all silly like the mayor.